for your participation. We also would like to encourage the participants to please queue in your questions onto the chat box. We will back to them after all our presentations. And at the end of our session this afternoon, please turn on your video for our photo ops. So let's start. I think we are all ready to listen. Our first presenters are John Edrich S. Alyare and William David G. Dizon of the University of Santo Tomas in the Philippines. Their paper is titled Creating Value Through Knowledge Management, a study on the UST Blackboard Learning Management System. Take it away, Santos.
With the rise of the new economy, knowledge became a valuable resource. Accepting knowledge as a resource suggests that knowledge can be acquired, transferred, combined, and used, and just as well become a potential source of competitive advantage. In this context, knowing how an organization creates value based on its potentials of knowledge became a central question in management research. Under a strategic perspective, knowledge that creates value is defined as intellectual capital, the application of which will give organizations sustainable competitive advantage. Therefore, identifying, measuring, and managing intellectual capital is crucial for corporate innovation and competitiveness. The purpose of this research was to explore if the University of Santo Tomas virtually enhanced classes using the Blackboard learning management system has created value by managing the intellectual capital therein. Specifically, it sought to find answers to the following research questions. How does virtually enhanced classes of the communication program create value for students? How is knowledge sharing undertaken in USC's communication program using the Blackboard learning management system? And how utilized or consumed are the virtually enhanced classes of the communication program? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my thesis advisees, John Jed Alaray and William Dizon.
For the theoretical framework, Harrison describes OCL as a new theory of learning that focuses on collaborative learning, knowledge building, and internet use as a means to reshape formal, non-formal, and informal education for the knowledge age. In OCL, there exist phases of knowledge construction through discourse in a group. Idea generating, the brainstorming phase. Idea organizing, the phase where ideas are compared, analyzed, and categorized through discussion and argument. And intellectual convergence, the phase where intellectual synthesis and consensus occurs, which all leads to the possible application of knowledge. The conceptual framework is anchored in the given model as we integrate the learner's experiences and professors' inputs about the virtual enhanced classes to come up with an effective decision and utilization of knowledge to create value. The students' learning experiences and input are vital to value creation as they're the main consumers of the virtually enhanced classes. On the other hand, the professor's inputs and knowledge are valuable as they're the facilitators for the creation of value amongst the students.
For our methodology, this study makes use of a descriptive mixed methods research design. For the data collection, a 43-item self-structured survey questionnaire was used in a 5-point Likert scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree with a neutral point. The instrument had gone through expert validation and was pre-tested with 30 respondents. The questionnaire was found to be reliable with a Cronbach alpha of 0.924 measure of reliability, which is greater than the accepted value. Then, an in-depth interview with the professors was also conducted to validate survey results and to acquire more information regarding value creation, knowledge sharing, and knowledge utilization. There were a total of 7 interviewees, and the interview was done in 2 ways, online via Zoom and offline via Google Forms. Additionally, the researchers were able to come up with matrices used for both the online survey and interview to clearly present the variables, measures, and indicators. And this is the actual research procedure for data collection, starting from content validity to pilot testing, then survey administration, and lastly, an in-depth interview.
We now proceed to the results and discussions. The study has gathered a total of 200 respondents. 70% were female, while 30% were male. For the year level demographic, 26.5% were first year students, 27.5% were second year students, 23.5% were third year, and 22.5% were fourth year. Regarding the first research question on how the virtually enhanced classes of the communication program of the University of Santo Tomas create value for students, it all boils down to the usefulness and relevance of the learning management system used in the conduct of virtual classes to both students and professors. Measured by the improvement in their academic performance, academic productivity, and technical competence, the students agree that they get high grades, that virtual enhanced classes allow them to accomplish assignments more quickly and efficiently, that they are able to use technology's assistance to its full extent with their tasks, and that they can use LMS such as Blackboard extensively for their subjects. Thus, for students, the virtual classes create value as the use of the LMS leads them to an effective action. On the other hand, for the professors, one considers Blackboard as a one-stop shop where everything is consolidated and is made available to the students. However, some professors do not fully use and are not that adept in using the LMS, hence opting for other platforms which does not help in maximizing the use of the provided resource of the university and instead lessens the relevance of the LMS. A professor suggested allotting time for orientation and how to use the technology because not everyone is used to using such. According to her, it creates value for the students as long as they, the professors, know how to use it. The value that will be created now depends on the professor's adeptness and utilization of the LMS for it to be relevant to the students.
Moving on to our second research question regarding how knowledge sharing is undertaken in UST's communication program using the Blackboard Learning Management System, it is made possible as long as the tools utilized in virtual enhanced classes are able to provide a platform for the students to effectively generate ideas, organize ideas, converge ideas, and apply their shared knowledge. These are then measured by idea generation, idea organizing, intellectual convergence, and application. And results show that one, they're able to develop new concepts as they understand the resources a task requires and can correlate new ideas from the topic or lesson to their desired profession. Two, they're able to collect ideas from collaborating with others and take notes from discussions to organize the main thoughts of the lecture, and also agree that under the provided LMS, the discussion board feature is essential for learning and sharing ideas. Three, they're able to synthesize ideas based on the feedback provided by the professors and classmates during recitations, while also presenting their opinion regardless of how they agree or disagree with the discussion at hand. And four, the students also agreed that the activities created by the professors are relevant and useful for real-life application, and these professional courses are able to provide activities of equal or more value as it was during face-to-face classes. Then, the professors also agreed that because everything was done virtually, losing the sense of personal touch that face-to-face classes have, professors will try to make up for it by keeping the students more engaged through active participation during lectures. Lastly, they also stated that there are multiple avenues which they can utilize to disseminate information through the LMS and simulate a classroom environment with Zoom, Google Meet, and the like to keep the connection. Then, for our third research question regarding how utilized or consumed the virtually enhanced classes of the communication program are, knowledge is utilized through a learner-centered approach with a realistic point of view in regards to the student situation. Measured by problem solving, this is indicated by their ability to produce solutions. Results show that the respondents were able to use the knowledge learned from the provided materials and synthesize them with their peers and were able to utilize them on problems that occurred within the household. This showed that there is effective use of the tacit knowledge transferred by the professor to the students undertaking virtually enhanced classes with hopes of utilizing them in their future profession. From the professors, they stated that utilizing and consuming knowledge can be more effective by meeting them halfway. By providing familiar and relatable context, you negotiate with their knowledge as you add and transfer what you have. And lastly, it is important for the professor to use the classroom not as a place to show off his or her intelligence, but to use it as a channel for the students to self-actualize to their hidden potential the subject gives the opportunity to.
After presenting all the findings, both for quantitative and qualitative results, here are the following conclusions of our study. The results of the survey and the interview accept Harrison's theory, where there is possible application of the knowledge shared by students and professors in the conduct of virtual classes that leads to value creation. Second, results show that the students under the facilitation of the professor are able to generate ideas, organize them, synthesize them, and apply them when learning through synchronous and asynchronous sessions through the knowledge management tool that is the learning management system implemented by the university. Lastly, the results from the survey and interview accept the end result of Harrison's theory for online collaborative learning, where learning manifests in applied knowledge through applications in the real world. Thank you very much for listening and have a good day.
Thank you very much for that interesting presentation, John Edrich and William David. We now proceed to our second presenter, Ms. Rosalia Prismarini Nordiarty and Cristina Andriani of the University Mercu Buana of Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Their paper is titled Interaction of Lecturers and Students through Online Learning in the Perspective of Computer-Mediated Communication.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Okarit. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Let me share my PPT. Okay. Our research in AMIC is interaction of lecturers and students through online learning in the perspective of computer-mediated communication. Let me introduce myself. I'm Rosalia and my team Cristina Andriani from Universitas Mercu Buana, Yogyakarta. The background in this research is CMC is one of it's based on 2019 coronavirus outbreak that has hit to 115 countries in the world. This is on challenges for educational institutions, especially universities. To fight COVID-19, the government has banned crowding, social distancing, and maintaining physical distancing, wearing masks, and always washing hands. Through the Ministry of Education and Culture, the government of Indonesia has prohibited universities from carrying out face-to-face lecture and ordered to hold lecture on or online learning based on circular letter of the Ministry of Education number 1 of 2020. Universities are led to able to organize for online learning, and previously lecture also took place online, but that was only as a support because most university in Indonesia still rely on face-to-face in the classroom. Students in Indonesia, some of whom are regional children, it's meant from other district or province, even from outside the island, also need attention. Student experience impact directly or indirectly, including in financial matters, and students are partially unable to attend online college because they do not have the money to buy internet quotas and because the allowance is reduced. Some has difficulty working because of lockdown or their workplace are not operational. Some also feel the indirect impact of decrease or even the cessation of money because their parent can no longer work. But computer-mediated communication become one solution during a pandemic. Although it cannot be denied that there are still problems in the field education related to access to information technology and media, one of which is the gap in a population that has high income can meet access to technology and follow education digitally. While in areas that still have signal difficulties, that online learning process become disruptive. In this research needs to be done to analyze change in learning activities, how to analyze and identify interaction of lecturer and student due to the COVID-19 and the phenomenon related to digital inequality in some region in Indonesia become one of the cause of online learning experiencing several obstacles, such as aspect of student understanding, the interaction of lecturer and student, and learning outcome. And some literature review in this research, the approach used to look at the phenomenon in computer-mediated communication or CMC, where CMC channel characterized such as lack of nonverbal cues and asynchronous property in the messaging system, interact with goals and strategies in online learning, thus resulting in a certain pattern of interaction. CMC is defined as the method of creating, accessing, and perceiving the information, which says encode, decode, and transmit the messages by means of telecommunication network. And also include any human interaction, which are symbolic text-based, directed or facilitated over digitally based technologies. And the relational communication through CMC cause certain difficulties. It is possible that miscommunication is claimed through CMC, specifically when the expression of affect that is when one's supposed to use the emoticon for projecting what they really mean for. And CMC, especially as CMC in education, is defined as the process by which people create, exchange, and perceive information using network telecommunication system that facilitate encoding, transmitting, and decoding messages. Based on Jung, Choi, and Lim applied Moore's classification system in study of web-based interaction. They suggest three type interaction. The first is academic interaction, second collaborative interaction, and interpersonal or social interaction. And the methodology used in the study is virtual ethnography, which allows researchers to see mediated interaction in both the virtual and physical reals. And the method of informant selection is non-probability of purposive sampling. And the object of this research at Mercubuana University of Yogyakarta, or in communication program, there are 6 informants of the communication science study program class of 2020, consisting 3 men and 3 women, while 3 are 6 lectures in communication science, consisting of 3 lecture teaching theory courses and 3 lecture teaching practicum courses. Here is my website learning system. Yeah. In the result of and discussion, I saw the e-learning website at Mercubuana University. Its lecture will input the what course will be shared in the semester. Then the lecture material will be uploaded through the feature available on the website. This feature can be seen here, can be file, video. There is a upload of file, video, forum for discussion and submitting exam, assignment, and quizzes. The research is still ongoing, so sorry, the data and discussion presented are still 70%. And in this online learning process, computer technology is presented as several applications that can be accessed through gadget and desktop. This application includes e-learning website, Google Meet, Google Classroom, YouTube, and WhatsApp, especially in WhatsApp group. Online learning is done asynchronous through the e-learning website of Mercubuana University. Lectures are also organized in synchronized through Zoom or Google Meet. And when communicating via Zoom or Google Meet, it's to be one way. This means that lecture talks more or provide material. Despite trying to open question session, students rarely respond or tend to be passive. This happen usually because students are not on cam during online classes, thus allowing them while doing other thing and not focusing on the lecture then take place. Therefore, to overcome this, the campus makes a policy to provide feedback in the form assignment quizzes about 60%. In addition, the discussion was asynchronous through the e-learning website. And in mediated interaction tend to be rigid and instrumentalist, which is mean in this case conversation and discussion following the existing system on the e-learning website. Q&A cannot be liquid because at the time of lecture
Miss
tend to
Rosalia.
dominate the conversation while students follow to
Miss Rosalia, you have 1 minute
focus.
left to wrap up the presentation.
Okay. And discussion will be more active when going through the conclusion in this research. All of the CMC tool, asynchronous and synchronous, discussed here have been proven or have the potential to increase interaction and enhance learning in the online environment. And the second CMC tools themselves continue to evolve in terms of the feature they include. And however, based on the result obtained, it turns out that the implementation of distance learning using CMC in universities will still considered ineffective because many factors are required to be met to carry out distance learning properly. Thank you. That's our presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Miss Rosalia, for your presentation. Let's go on to our third presenter, Mr. John Kenneth Talanya of St. Dominic College of Asia. His presentation is titled Virtual Census, Active Cameras in Improving Online Learning Experience of St. Dominic College of Asia's SASE students.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am John Kenneth Talanya, a BA Communication student and an undergraduate student from St. Dominic College of Asia in Bacoor City, Cavite, Philippines. On behalf of my co-authors, Maria Therese Ong, Maria Catherine Milan Galvez, and Laura Henry Remulla, whom I worked with in doing this research, I am humbled, thankful, and honored to present to everyone our research entitled Virtual Census, Active Cameras in Improving Online Learning Experience of St. Dominic College of Asia SASE students. To start my presentation, I would like everyone to watch a short clip from Zach King, a YouTube magician and illusionist. Take a look.
Okay, everybody, we'll begin with presentations, and Zach, you start us off.
So, for my presentation, wait, I don't get the Wi-Fi.
All right, Zach, your signal's breaking up. I'm sorry. Morgan, let's go on to your presentation.
Yes, so I'm presenting.
Okay.
Pretty cool, right? I wish I could do that too. However, even though it's just a skit, we can all agree that what Zap King did in their meeting was wrong. Making an illusion about your presence and fooling everyone in an online meeting is wrong. Also, everyone can also be fooled or uncertain that a person is really in the meeting just because that they are in the meeting, but however, their camera is off. That is why with the use of active cameras, some companies and institutions, especially educational institutions such as schools, encourage all participants or students in an online meeting to turn on their cameras to show the presence of each and everyone involved. An active camera is a camera from a device that is being used to attend online classes where their presence is required, also used for creating content or live streaming, making it a great tool for a variety of purposes. As a student who transitioned from face-to-face to face-to-screen classes, I can say that the adjustment of using the camera feature in web conferencing applications was really hard. However, a light bulb lit on the top of my head and wonder if there is effectiveness using the webcam feature in these applications in a meeting. and in improving our learning experiences in the virtual setup at that. This is where our research comes in. The use of cameras and their effectiveness in improving the online learning experiences of students. The statement of the problem of our research are as follows. The first is, what is the demographic profile of the respondents? The second is, what is the level of effectiveness of using cameras during online classes in terms of their participation and productivity, which pertains to the students' participation in class when using active cameras and their productivity in doing activities in a synchronous class. Presence, which pertains to the visual presence in the web conference meeting. Connection and bond refers to the relationship of their classmates and each and everyone in the meeting as they can see each other. Efficient communication, meaning how active cameras help the students communicate efficiently. Motivation and confidence, which pertains to the students' motivation in studying and learning, and confidence in showing their virtual presence. And the application, which is more about the experience of using the camera feature in the web conferencing applications. And the third is there a significant difference in the levels of effectiveness of using active cameras during online classes in terms of these 6 categories as well? Participation and productivity, presence, connection and bond, efficient communication, motivation and confidence, and application. Our research is quantitative. Out of 207 students under the School of Arts, Sciences, and Education of St. Dominic College of Asia, we've gathered over 131 students to be the respondents to our research. The students under the SASE department comprises of Bachelor of Science in Psychology, which is the majority of our respondents, Bachelor of Arts in Communication, and Bachelor of Science in Education students. Due to the pandemic, it was more convenient for us to gather respondents under the SASE department on our own. Hence, we used convenient sampling in selecting respondents. We made and used a survey questionnaire as our tool in gathering the data we need to measure the demographic of the respondents and the level of effectiveness of the 6 categories that I've mentioned before. And we sought aid from a statistician to help us get the results of our study using SPSS as our statistical tool and frequency distribution, one-way repeated measures ANOVA, and pairwise comparisons as our statistical methods. Moving on to the results, our study shows that students agree that using active cameras shows effectiveness in improving their online learning experiences when it comes to their participation productivity, presence, connection and bond, and communication efficiency. Furthermore, it shows the camera's effectiveness when students open their cameras during classes, as students are obliged to participate and do their activities since the professors can see them. The effectiveness of using the camera also shows how their classmates and professors see their presence as presentable as possible by wearing neat and proper clothes and having a clean or neat background. In addition, the camera's effectiveness is present to the relationship between fellow students and professors as they can see them in a virtual interaction to compensate for the physical distance due to COVID restriction. Students also agree to the effectiveness of active cameras towards efficient communication as they can be heard and see what the students are trying to communicate to the professors and their classmates. However, students are not decided or undecided yet if their effectiveness of using cameras in online classes is present in the motivation and confidence of the student, as well as the usage of the feature in the web conferencing applications. They have not decided yet if using their cameras helps them motivated in studying and having confidence in showing themselves as they attend the class and study. In addition, they have not decided yet if using cameras in web conferencing applications such as Zoom, Google Meet, and Microsoft Teams and whatnot, and using it in practical use shows effectiveness. This may be because they are not quite sure if they are satisfied with their experiences using the camera feature in web conferencing applications, regret the times that they did not use the camera feature, and the camera feature made them consider using it in the future. Despite the results saying that the students are undecided if using cameras in online classes shows effectiveness in these two categories, results also show that students agree that using active cameras has overall effectiveness in improving their online learning experiences. Moving forward to the presentation of our data, the results here shows that there are significant differences among all categories and the overall effectiveness of the camera use. It goes to show that each category shows different levels of effectiveness in using active cameras. Therefore, using active cameras improves the students' online learning experiences, but their level of effectiveness in terms of participation and productivity, presence, connection and bond, efficient communication, motivation and confidence, application, and overall effectiveness differ from one another. To further understand the differences of each category, we use pairwise comparisons to see the mean differences between each of those areas. And the results show that there are significant differences between a category from the other, except for the following: participation and productivity to presence, connection and bond to efficient communication, motivation and confidence to application, and overall effectiveness to efficient communication. This means that using a camera during online classes might influence those areas without significant differences almost to the same extent or degree. For instance, if the use of active cameras in online classes will be implemented and will improve the students' presence by providing virtual background or mandatory use of school uniforms, the results suggest that the participation and productivity of the students in online classes will improve the same extent as the presence does. This also applies to the categories mentioned above that do not have significant differences between them. In conclusion, the effectiveness of each category, namely participation and productivity, presence, connection and bond, and efficient communication, had decent and high statistics based on the results and was agreed by the respondents when it comes to the effectiveness. However, motivation and confidence and application resulted in undecided. However, despite the two categories resulted as undecided for those two, the overall effectiveness said otherwise, and students still thought that using cameras might improve their online learning experiences inside a virtual classroom. We, the researchers, recommend the use of active cameras in online classes because it generally helps students and there are no negative effects on not using an active camera. Also, future researchers may also resort to pursuing qualitative research with a similar or related research topic to further analyze and understand the issues and the behavior of the students. Thank you everyone for your time. I'm John Kenneth Talanya from St. Dominic College of Asia in Bacoor City, Cavite, Philippines. I wish everyone a wonderful day and happy golden anniversary, AMIC. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, John Kenneth, for your presentation. We proceed with our fourth presenter. Is Miss Patricia Matias already here? I've been checking the chat, the participants list. She appears to be not present yet. We proceed.
Here, I'm here. Hello.
Thank
Hello.
you. Thank you very much. You may know
Yes.
our fourth presenter is Patricia Michelle Matias. Her presentation is titled YouTube Usage and its Impact on the Academic Performance of the Youth of Sajik Tampak, Manipur, India.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yeah. You may now share your screen.
Yeah. Just a minute. It's not having a technical glitch. Please give me a second. Is my screen visible now?
Yes. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ma'am Florine, for the introduction. My topic today is YouTube usage and its impact on the academical performance of the youth of Sajik Tampak, Manipur, India. I am presenting this paper on behalf of myself and Santina Nangwan. With over 1.86 million viewers in 2021, YouTube is an undeniably popular user-driven video accessing and video sharing platform for the dissemination of multimedia information on varied topics. YouTube today has dramatically altered ways of communication, knowledge, entertainment, and education by allowing users to showcase their ideas, thoughts, pictures, and videos through its easy availability on any digital device like a computer, iPad, or smartphone. Varied researchers over the years have pointed out both the merits and demerits of social networking usage platforms like YouTube and Facebook. This study is a research on YouTube and its significance in the lives of the youth of Sajik Tampak, a small village in Chandel district of Manipur, India, and its impact on their academical performance. This village in this Chandel district of Manipur barely has a population of 1,562 people with about 180 children and about 80 youth members. For the operational definition, we look at the definition of academical performance of youth. Radhika Kapoor in her research defines a few elements that determine academical performance of students, which include class participation, class assignments, homework assignments, tests, examination and participation in competitions or other events. She also adds that textbooks, notes, library, and learning facilities are equally important to enhance the understanding of academic concepts, which further promotes the academical performance of students. The research has used the same elements in the questionnaire for the analysis of the academical performance. For the literature review, we look at two aspects, both the positive aspects of YouTube and the negative aspects of YouTube. Positive aspects, YouTube and participatory culture. Clovis et al. 2018 in their research quote researchers and say that social connections can be formed around video content based on viewing patterns and user preferences. Shaw 2010 says that some almost post videos in response to other videos viewed by them, leading to what calls a participatory culture and a content generating process too. Thus, YouTube leads to participatory culture. YouTube is also a great help in content and income generation. There's a wide assortment of video content, according to Margaret Holland, on diverse themes, which has contributed to everybody finding a video on YouTube that suits their palate, leading to a virtual building of relationship between both the content creators and the users. This has also led to income generation for the content producers as much as it has encouraged a trend of creating videos. YouTube as entertainment. Madhavika and Ratnayake 2020 state that in case of non-academical usage, YouTube was used by undergraduates primarily for stress releasing and entertainment purposes. Shaw 2010 quotes the entertainment media research study, which led to an understanding that youth found YouTube as a good source of video entertainment, and many of whom joined the forum just to post comments or follow-up recommendations by friends. YouTube as an educational tool. YouTube has built a platform for those involved in education on its site, where staff and students could make video clips to enhance their course material. Tutorials are popular among students who wish to learn basics and even professional technological nuances based on tutorial videos uploaded by professionals on YouTube. Negative effects of YouTube. Most social networking platforms have a concept that keeps an individual glued to it, and YouTube has a similar construct. The algorithms embedded in the YouTube construct suggest a constant engagement with videos, which could affect a student's performance in various ways, as it promotes massive time consumption and an undeniable venture into unnecessary content. So, among the negative effects of YouTube, YouTube is primarily a source of entertainment. The thin line between both education and entertainment is just a click away on YouTube. Balakrishnan and Griffiths 2017 say that as a forum that promotes both content creation and content viewing, the few features of YouTube can induce users to spend a considerable time on the site, leading mostly to entertainment rather than education. Study time consumption, YouTube and procrastination of work. YouTube can turn into a time-consuming obsession for studies for students who lack self-control, this leading to compromise of other works and garnering a clutter of information. Similarly, procrastination of academical work due to engagement in various social media has become a worldwide occurrence, according to studies, state Clovis et al. Information clutter of debatable quality. So many YouTube influencers upload YouTube content on the platform to an extent that there is a mass confusion of what is right and what is wrong for many students accessing YouTube. Content creation can also be a sign of addiction. YouTube is a platform which does not prevent an upload of a video unless it clashes with their policies of copyright. Balakrishnan and Griffiths also say that the addiction construct was highly correlated with both content creation affinity compared with content viewing affinity. Flaming on YouTube, study by Moore, Hulwan, Verluer, 2010, suggested in their research that a part of the audience on YouTube actually enjoyed insulting others, and that in all probability, given the fact that many members of YouTube consist of teenagers, they were bored teenagers who like to take bullying outside the scope of their classroom. Having looked at this literature review, we look at the two research objectives. To comprehend the significance of YouTube usage amidst the Sajik Tampak youth, and to determine the negative and positive impact of YouTube usage on the academical performance of the Sajik Tampak youth. The methodology that was employed. First, we use the quantitative analysis. We use a survey method, planned printed survey questionnaire. We use a non-probability convenient sampling of 60 youth that were present in the village. Likert scales was used for the response, and the IBM SPSS software was used to analyze data, derive frequency percentages, and prepare the bar graphs. For the sample, 60 out of a total number of 80 youth members from Sajik Tampak village were youth. The other 20 members were unavailable during the survey because they were out for their studies. We now look at the research finding. All students were active consumers of YouTube, and around 87% students access YouTube through smartphones. YouTube consumption was around half an hour to 3 hours on a daily basis by the youth of Sajik Tampak. Except for 3 students, all the others had used YouTube as a resource for their class presentations. This is actually surprising because some years back, a place like Sajik Tampak did not even have electricity. But today, things are different with network and electricity both being there. Among the positive findings, 20% of students stated that YouTube had better resources in comparison with their libraries, while 72% students said that the only reason they accessed YouTube as compared to their library is because of the fast search. While a library required manual work to search content, it was easier to get onto YouTube and just type what they required and find the tutorials available. 47% and above. Yes.
You only have 1 minute left to wrap up your presentation.
Okay. 47% had accessed YouTube at some time or the other, and 68% students used it as an academical resource. I look at the negatives now. Except for 12 students, many were of the opinion that binge watching had led to drowsiness in class, lack of attention, and their exams getting affected. YouTube students had strongly agreed that they watched porn and were unable to concentrate during their class hours on the next day. Further, they earned money by posting vulgar and copyrighted content on their personal YouTube channels. They also did flaming, that is, posted vulgar remarks on videos and naughty remarks in order to avenge or take a revenge on their friends. They also ignored their friends playing games while going for a walk. There is a significant use of YouTube amidst students, and there is both a negative and positive effect of YouTube usage on the academical performance of Sajik Tampak youth. As a conclusion, social media is indeed a boon. However, the user can turn it into a bane through irregular or undisciplined usage. Given the fact that institutions and government bodies are emphasizing on YouTube as educational tools, it is primarily necessary to introduce and provide guidance on social media, its uses and abuses, and an ethical usage. Media education, both for teachers and students, is a must in view of guiding a healthier educational usage of all social networking forums. Thank you. This is Sister Patricia Michelle Mathias from India.
Thank you, Sister Michelle. We now proceed to our 5th presenter. May we know if Ms. Ashish Hussain is already here? Okay, if she's not here yet, we can proceed to our next presenter. Our next presenter is Mr. Jude William Henilo of the University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh. His paper is titled Bangladeshi Students' Motivation, Aspiration, and Satisfaction Regarding Journalism Education.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. I'll be sharing my screen. So this study was done before COVID. Therefore, the data would be showing us, um, not considering online education, although I could relate it to that, knowing what is happening after. Okay. So, well, I'll start with this statement. Journalism as a university degree is not popular at all in Bangladesh. And if we take a look at the statistics coming from the University Grants Commission, you would see that the most popular courses are engineering and then business. And then arts and humanities, a lot lower than engineering and business. And then if we look at the School of Social Science, it's really minuscule compared to the other schools. And journalism would be falling under the School of Social Science, although it would have half of that, it's still small. So around 4,000 students in 2018, also in 2019. Okay, so what are the reasons for the unpopularity of this course? Well, first, it's the market-driven approach in university education. Parents and students, they look at university education as an investment. It's an investment for a better future, a better job, and better marital prospects. And therefore, when their children, parents don't really care about what are the strengths and weaknesses or likes and dislikes of their children. They're really more focused on the potential to get into big companies and to be able to marry rich people. And that's why they put a lot of emphasis in courses that they believe would bring them this return on investment. And then it doesn't also help that there are many uncertainties facing the media industry, like unsatisfactory economic packages and a lot of media houses uh, experiencing difficulty and now that there is the social media platform to compete with. And also, it doesn't help that there's a ongoing debate between practitioners and educationists about what is the best place to train journalists, whether it should be in the classroom or it should be in the newsroom. And many journalism schools in Bangladesh are more theory based, and students want more professional oriented practice. So if we take a look at journalism schools in Bangladesh, they would be divided to the private and public universities, and then almost equal, 47.2% from the public and 52.8% from the private universities. So what we wanted to find out was to know the motivations of students, why they're entering journalism schools, in spite of parents and guardians and relatives looking down on them. And so why do they still go into journalism school? Because if you go to journalism school, it's like your ranking in society goes lower. So who influenced them to study journalism? What are the reasons to study journalism? And do they have family support to study journalism? Also wanted to find out what are their aspirations, what newsroom positions they would like to have, what are their perceptions about career prospects, and also to look at their satisfaction with their journalism education, the overall education experience, and their satisfaction with their internship program. So this is a more of a descriptive study. We use a survey. These are for journalism students in Bangladesh, and the sample size was 327. So this was before the pandemic. So if we look at the profile of the respondents, most of them would be aged 22 to 26, Muslim, male, and single. Okay, now who influenced them to take up journalism? And the number one influencer is their own selves. So this is a Likert scale, who influenced you. So 5 is the highest, 1 is the lowest. So basically, they were self-motivated. Parents really did not influence them. So it's really going into this market-driven. Parents really don't want their children to go to journalism school because they don't see a lucrative future in it. Relatives, even so, less. Uh, Teachers, just 2.72. Okay, so what's the strongest motivation? Why do they go? Well, number one is because journalism, they feel, will make an impact on society. It will allow them to travel, and it is a job that will give them a lot of freedom. So these are students who don't picture themselves having a 9 to 5 job. Okay, so let's look at the family support that's being given to them. So basically, if you look at the last column, you would see that, yeah, they say that the family has supporting them 67.5%. But in terms of moral support, only 36% of students say they get moral support from their parents. And then 28.75% said, yeah, we are being given advice by our family. And then financially, only 38.8% said that our parents pay for our education. So a lot of them really work to sustain their own education. Many parents say that if you will take journalism, I will not support or pay your tuition fee. And that's why many students tend to work on the side or do part-time jobs. But during COVID, because of the economic impact, a lot of students were unable to pay for their tuition fee, and that's why we saw a 30% reduction in enrollment in journalism schools. So that was the impact of COVID, because parents still would refuse to pay for their tuition fees. Okay, so what do they aspire for? So why do they really want to go into journalism? Well, because they want to be news reporters. So that's basically what half 52% of them want to be. And it's even higher for those studying in private universities, 65.2%. So there are other jobs that they wish for, like being a copy editor or a feature writer or a photojournalist or a TV, radio newscaster. But mainly they want to be a news reporter. So are they grounded on, regarding what's the prospect of journalism career? So basically they are, because they feel there are fair prospects in a journalism career, especially the financial reward. So they're not doing it really for the money. They're doing it to make an impact on society, and it's something that they really want to do. That's why an internship program is very important to them, because this is the chance for them to work in a newsroom before actually working there. So it's like an experience for them. So looking at this graph, you would see that the private university students were more satisfied as compared to the public university students. And they viewed why they were most satisfied. Well, they saw the internship as a good learning experience. And also they were satisfied with their placement and with their faculty advisor. Okay, and what about the standard of journalism education in general? Well, they are quite satisfied with their faculty, the quality, and the teaching and learning, but not quite satisfied with the research opportunities and the resources or facilities for journalism education. And also comparing between private and public universities, the students in private universities were more satisfied as compared to their public counterparts. Okay,
Professor
so
Jude,
yes,
we only have 1 minute, Paul.
yeah. So to conclude, well, we suggest maybe government should come up with the scholarship fund. Also, the profession should come up with standardized economic packages, a balanced curriculum for universities, investment in education facilities, and dialogue between academe and industry. We did a study also about satisfaction of private university students regarding online learning. Basically, the main dissatisfaction is about learning assessment tools online, and also students are already fed up with online learning, and that's why they really wish to come back to face-to-face education. So I would just be concluding here due to lack of time. Thank you very much. You are muted, moderator.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Jude. We now move to our sixth presenter, Ms. Chloe V. Bernal of the Philippine Women's University. Her paper is titled Design, Reliability, and Content Validity of a Questionnaire on Perceived Barriers in Online Learning Laboratory Classes Among Undergraduate Pharmacy Students in Selected Schools in Metro Manila.
Hello, so good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to our paper entitled The Design, Reliability, and Content Validity of a Questionnaire on Perceived Barriers in Online Laboratory Classes Among Undergraduate Pharmacy Students in Selected Schools in Metro Manila. So I am Chloe Bernal, a representative of my group from Philippine Women's University, Manila, and I would like to give my warm greetings to all of the presenters and listeners today. So before we proceed with the discussion of the main tool, it is important to note a few things. We all know that the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted a lot of sectors worldwide, and this includes the educational sector. With this, majority of the universities here in the Philippines have been forced to shift from face-to-face classes to an online learning setting. Now, during these times, it is important that we adapt to the challenges in order for us to continue our education. In fact, according to the JED Memorandum Number 3, Series of 2006, pharmacy education has both theoretical and practical aspect. Furthermore, Bortnick et al. 2017 states that laboratory class is an essential component of health sciences program, particularly the pharmacy program, which solidifies our need to continue our practicum even if it should be done online. However, according to Baticulon et al. 2021, several interrelated barriers were identified during online classes in the pandemic setting, and these barriers were classified into different categories, namely the technological, individual, domestic, institutional, and community barriers. Now, several studies have been done in the Philippines to assess the barriers experienced by health-allied courses. However, there are only a few studies targeted to assessing the barriers that pharmacy students face during online laboratory classes. So, to obtain a better understanding and determine the perceived barriers of undergraduate pharmacy students in the delivery of online laboratory classes, the researchers opted to work on this study, which aims to design a survey questionnaire that will identify this barrier. We also believe that identifying the barriers that students face could influence the problem solving and decision making of implementing bodies, which in turn could lead to better learning outcomes and experience of students. So for the purpose of our study, our aim is to design a survey questionnaire tool to assess the perceived barriers on online laboratory classes. Our aim is also to prove the content and face validity, as well as the reliability of the questionnaire. For the specifics of our objective, our aim is to 1. Generate items for the survey questionnaire consisting of A. The profile of undergraduate pharmacy students, B. The learning materials and objects used by the undergraduate pharmacy students, C. The technological profile of undergraduate pharmacy students, and D. The perceived barriers on online laboratory classes. Our second aim is to determine the validity of the perceived barriers in the survey questionnaire in terms of A. The content validity index, which aims to identify the relevance of questions to the objectives. B. The face validity index, which tries to examine the clarity, appropriateness of language and wording, appropriateness of responses, as well as the application to praxis. Lastly, we aim to determine the reliability of the perceived barriers in the questionnaire in terms of internal consistency. So we'll use Cronbach's alpha for this. Now what you're seeing on the screen is the entire flow diagram of our questionnaire development. This was adapted and modified from Mala et al. 2014. This has 3 main parts and I will try to explain each. Now, for the first part, which is the item generation, this details the process of how we developed our questionnaire. First, we did the systematic literature review, primarily related to barriers that the students encountered in online laboratory classes. This should help us in getting an overview on the said topic. And for this, we also prioritize the literatures that have been validated and proven reliable. Next, we generated a 75-item questionnaire, which consists of the following. A, the student profile that has 6 items. B, the learning materials used in online laboratory classes, which has 7 items. C, the technological profile of the students, which has 7 items. And D, the perceived level barriers of the students. So for this part, you will see that we have different classifications for each barrier, such as the technological, the personal, the institutional, the environmental, and the social interaction barrier. And we also used a Likert scale for this. It was done through Google Forms. After preparing the questionnaire, we proceeded with the content and phase validation. Please note that the content validation aims to measure the relevance of the question to the objectives, while the phase validation aims to assess the appearance and appropriateness of the items. Now, the important thing to remember here is this part, which is the acceptable value. So after the validation is done, we need to have a score of 1 in order for it to be considered as valid. If it is less than that, for example, we got a score of 0.9, then we would have to do revisions in the questionnaire tool. For our validation process, we contacted a panel of 5 experts, which consists of experts from the field of pharmacy, general academe, information technology, psychometry, and statistics. Now, the image on the right is a preview of the validation rubrics for the expert panel that we adapted and modified from Simon and White 2014. We provided the operational definitions for each criteria at this location. We also used a 4-point Likert scale for the rating system of each criteria, and below is the interpretation for each rating. So 1 is the lowest, meaning that it is not acceptable and it needs modification, and 4 is the highest, meaning that it exceeds expectations and no modifications are needed. We also provided a comments and suggestion box here for every question so that the experts may be able to leave their input. Now, our first validation had a lower score of 1, meaning that both the content and phase validity did not meet the acceptable value. For this, we had to do modifications by retaining, removing, adding, or merging some of the items on our questionnaire. We also considered the comments of our experts to further improve our questionnaire. Now, after the revision, we submitted the questionnaire for revalidation. As you can see in Table 3, we compared the results between the first and second validation. The second validation gathered a perfect score of 1, which means that our questionnaire has been proven to be valid both on phase and content validity. Now, our next agenda was to conduct the reliability testing. So the reliability testing measures the internal consistency of the results, or how closely related a set of items are as a group. For this, we gathered 2 males and 2 females, having a total of 4 students per school, and disseminated the questionnaire through Google Forms. For this part, the acceptable value is 0.7. And as you can see from our table 4, the data meets the acceptable value for the questionnaire to be considered reliable. Now, the table 5 on the screen shows the comparison between the initial questionnaire versus the revalidated questionnaire. This one is the revalidated. Our items reduced from 75 to 67, and 2 of the major revisions that we had to make was 1, to ensure that the number of questions per barrier were equal to 10, and we also had to reconstruct some sentences and choices of word for better understanding. Now, this photo shows the final survey questionnaires on perceived barrier online laboratory classes that we made. For the conclusion, the total number of final items of the questionnaire is 67, which consists of 6 student profile questions, 1 question about the learning objects or material used in online laboratory classes, 10 questions for the technological profile of the student, 10 technological barrier questions, 10 personal barrier questions, 10 institutional barrier questions, 10 environmental barrier questions, and 10 social interaction barrier questions. Now, our study exhibits acceptable indices for content and phase validation of a developed questionnaire with final content and phase validity index of 1 from all expert panels. Furthermore, the study also provides validated and reliable questionnaire designed to assist in determining the perceived barriers of undergraduate pharmacy students in online laboratory classes. So with this, thank you for listening to my presentation and have a good day to all of you.
Thank you very much, Chloe. It was such an interesting presentation. We now proceed to our next presenter, Ms. Jeannie Smith of Braintistic Science. Her presentation is titled The Braintistic Science Story, How We Pivoted to Deliver Our Interactive Science Shows Online.
Hi everyone, I will just share my screen. There we go, hopefully that is working. So yes, my talk's going to be a little bit different because this has been mainly about higher and further education. But what I do is, actually I do a bunch of stuff. I write for adults, I do TV presenting, I also do training of scientists in how to communicate. But one of the things I'm most passionate about is helping young people to understand their brains. So I've been doing science shows at schools and festivals focusing on neuroscience and psychology for over 10 years now. But 2 years ago, I moved from the UK to Singapore, and I decided that would be a good time to kind of expand what I was doing. So I rebranded as Braintastic Science. I took on 2 presenters in the UK and I trained them up in my shows, thinking that they would start performing at schools and events in the UK, and I would start reaching out to organisations in Southeast Asia once I was set up in Singapore. Unfortunately, then the pandemic happened and that kind of changed everything for us. Real world events started cancelling, schools closed, and like so many other educational organisations, we had to pivot to online. So my days went from looking a bit like this. This is my presenter Alina on a stage at a school. This was me presenting at the Royal Institution a few years ago, which was an absolute dream come true. And so my days went from that to looking much more like this, more like you see me today. So through doing that, there were a few different challenges that came up. One was how we kept the interactivity of our shows. So we're known for being highly interactive. This is one of our shows, which is all about the basics of neuroscience. We get kids up on stage, we get them to be a neuron, to send signals, we get them dressed up. And this was something that I just couldn't work out how to translate to online. Other things that we do in some of our other shows were a lot easier. So we have a show that's all about the senses, and things like visual illusions translate really easily. Others need specialist kit. So this is a picture of me using our ear swapping headphones on a student. And obviously this is a specialized bit of kit that no one is going to have at home. So I had to think about how we could keep those interactive elements, but make them something that people could get involved with at home without any specialist kit. So I just want to give you a quick example. When we talk about touch in our stage show, I do a demo which involves getting someone out of the audience to run their fingers down 2 different pieces of sandpaper, a rough one and a smooth one. And they do that for a while, and then they move to a middle piece, and it feels different to their different fingers. So I couldn't translate that exact experiment to something that people could do at home because they wouldn't necessarily have the sandpaper. So instead, I use a different touch experiment, which I would love for you to all have a go at now. So you'll need a pen or a pencil and your fingers. And all you have to do is cross your fingers like that. Hopefully you can see my fingers there. And then take the pen or pencil and just touch it to the little V you've created between your 2 fingers. And if you get it in just the right place, particularly if you shut your eyes, it will start to feel like there are 2 things touching your finger. And that's because your brain doesn't realize you've crossed your fingers. And normally, if there was something touching the outside of that finger and the outside of that finger, that would have to be 2 things. So when you've got your fingers crossed and you're touching it like that, your brain thinks they're uncrossed and thinks that there are two things touching it. So that was the kind of demo that I ended up switching to, things that everyone could get involved with at home with very little kit. We also developed a science club during the lockdown, the first lockdown period in the UK, where I recorded videos and created worksheets that allowed kids to do the activities at home. They could do them in their own time. It was asynchronous. And we got some really nice responses to that. To start with, the parents were using it to help with homeschooling and to entertain their kids when they couldn't go out. One of the things that I learned was really important with presenting online was to try and keep the connection. It can be very easy to not feel particularly connected to people when you're presenting. So for example, at the moment, I can't see any of your faces, which is a weird sensation. You're just kind of talking into a void. But one thing that I'm doing is I'm keeping my eyes fixed on the camera. So hopefully you feel like you're getting a bit of connection with me. When I'm talking to kids, I also think that eye contact is even more important. So I don't present like this with the slides big at the side and then my face really small. Instead, I use some software that allows me to put images up next to me when I need them to, but keeps my face the focus on the screen, because I found that gets a much better response from kids than looking at slides the whole time. We've also had to switch to doing pre-recorded events because shows, because that's what some of the events have wanted. So I wanted to show you a little clip now of one of the shows that we pre-recorded for Science Week Ireland. So hopefully you'll be able to hear that. I'll just mute my microphone for a moment. So I'm going to play you a little audio illusion now. In a second, you're going to hear a clip of my voice telling you to do something. But what I've done is I've messed around with the audio, so it sounds really, really strange. All I need you to do is listen carefully, and if you can understand what I'm saying, just follow my instructions. Okay, we'll play it in 3, 2, 1. Please raise your arms in the air. So I'm assuming that no one is doing anything right now, because usually no one can understand what I was saying in that clip, because I've messed around with the audio so much. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play you the original version with that clip that I haven't messed around with. You don't have to do it this time, just listen. Okay, we'll play it in 3, 2, 1. Please wave your arms in the air. Okay, now you've heard that clip, I'm going to go back and play you the messed around with one again. And hopefully this time you'll be able to understand it. So if you can, follow the instructions. Okay, this is the same clip you heard the first time. We'll play it in 3, 2, 1. Please wave your arms in the air. Are you doing it? Hopefully there are lots of you waving your arms in the air. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? That clip that just sounded like random noise to start with, once you know what I'm saying, suddenly your brain can make sense of it. And this is something your brain is doing all the time. It's always using your expectations, using what you already know to help you make sense of the world. So I'm going to play you a little. Okay, never mind. So hopefully that just gives you a little flavor. Oh, sorry, still muted. There we go. Hopefully that just gives you a little bit of a flavor of the kinds of things that we've done in transitioning our real life on stage in school shows to online. I think there have been some real benefits to it as well as the difficult things. For one, we've been able to reach more kids. So for example, Science Week Ireland, I would usually for the last few years, I've gone over to Ireland and I've done a road show and I've seen maybe 200, 300 kids over the course of 3 days. But this year and last year, actually, they did it online and they were able to reach thousands of kids in parts of Ireland that are quite rural, that wouldn't normally have access to a live show. So that's been a real benefit. We've been able to reach a wider range of locations as well because we haven't had to travel to do the online events. So it's been much easier to reach kids in different parts of the UK in particular. That's still where most of my schools and clients are, but also theoretically around the rest of the world as well. I also think to some extent online events can be more accessible. So they do obviously rely on you having access to good internet, which does rule out many people, but it also allows in some people who might not have been able to get to a physical event. So I normally perform at a lot of science festivals, but they tend to be in big cities and they're only accessible to people who can physically get there. So online events can be more accessible to people with disabilities, maybe people on lower incomes who have caring responsibilities and maybe can't get out for a day out, or for other reasons just can't travel there. As I say, as long as they do have access to the internet. So where do I see this going in the future? Well, my hope is that we can end up with events that keep the best of both worlds, because it's not the same doing online events. It's been interesting converting my shows and fun, but there is nothing that beats the buzz and the interaction you get when you're right there in the room with the students. They can ask you questions, they can interact with each other. But I do hope that we can keep some of those benefits of making events more accessible to more people by maybe doing some kind of hybrid event. For example, this conference being online, I'm sure means that there are plenty of us who are here that wouldn't have been here if it had been a real physical conference. So I guess the real question that I have is, how do we make sure we keep the best of both worlds and don't end up with the worst of both worlds? So how do we keep the good bits and not the bad bits? But I really do hope that we don't just go back to 100% normal 100% of the time and lose those benefits that we have gained from doing things online. Thank you so much for listening. If you have questions, I think we have time at the end. Otherwise, you can find me online. I'm Ginny Smith Sci or Braintastic Sci, Braintastic Science, if you want to find our website and see more about what we do. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. We now proceed. We have still 45 minutes to close time. We have a lot of questions already here in the chat box. So, are the presenters ready to answer the questions? The first question is for John Kenneth Palania. Okay. Students say that they close their cameras due to poor internet connection. Did your study take this into consideration? What is your take on this? Kenneth, you are...
I apologize. I apologize. My other mic is muted. I believe that the first two questions for me was relatively the same, as they are talking about the poor internet connections. How and did we consider it? And all I can say that it was part of the limitations of our study, that we only identify the effectiveness, that not the reason why students do not open their cameras. And I think it will be also a good area to explore for the recommended qualitative, as we recommended earlier.
Okay, thank you. So you are covering both questions 1 and 2. For question 3, I was wondering about cognitive overload. I thought there was research saying that the fact that you can see yourself in a Zoom call is distracting, as you have to think about how you look as well as the content. Did you look at that at all?
Thank you, Jenny Smith, for that question. Actually, I have read that study after we completed our research. It was not included in the study, unfortunately. And since in our school, we only have a maximum of an hour of synchronous class per subject. Therefore, Zoom fatigue, which is the online video conferencing fatigue, may not greatly affect the study of our study. So I hope I can answer that one.
Yes. Okay, so our fourth question, Have you considered web camera usage in its relation to classroom management? And I think two presenters could answer that probably, or any other presenter. Have you considered web camera usage in its relation to classroom management?
I believe the presenter next to me
Yeah.
is for the
Maybe
question.
the second presenter and the third. Rosalia, can we hear from you? And also John Kenneth.
Ma'am, repeat the question. Sorry. In
The question is, have you considered web camera usage and its relation to classroom management, classroom engagement?
oh, camera. It's with camera. Wait, wait a moment. Sorry.
May we hear from John Kenneth?
I believe that study is not covered into mine, but what I can say is that in our research, we already considered using web cameras because again we want to know the effectiveness of using the camera in terms of from the student's perspective when it comes to our based on my perspective as a student perspective, does it improve how effective it is, or what is the effectiveness of using cameras in improving our learning experiences, since we are in currently in under COVID-19 pandemic. We are forced to transition to online classes, and I believe webcams or other cameras from our phones to any other devices that we use when it comes to web conferencing meetings in general is one of the tools that we use to compensate for the senses that we usually do when in our meeting way pre-pandemic. So I think yeah, that we consider webcams in classroom engagement.
Thank you very much.
I agree with Mr. John. If the camera on the student will focus more on the material delivered by the lecture, I think so.
Okay, thank you. Our next two questions are for Sister Michelle. The first question, Sister Michelle, is about the Sajik Tampak usability to assess the reliability of information sources in YouTube. Any insight on this?
Yeah, sadly, in the case of most students, I must say, as a teacher, they are prone to, when they get a topic for which they need to discover anything, they just type it on Google and try to garner whatever information available. And very often, the reliability of sources is not sure. The only way to deal with this problem would be possibly if teachers in the classroom could guide the students as to what are the genuine websites which are available, what to avoid and what not to take. Because very often from what I have seen, students here are prone to go to websites which are like SlideShare and things like that, and where amateur students end up uploading a lot of content which they have presented in classrooms, very often with lack of data. So the best thing would be if there is a teacher, the teacher will have to do a little homework of guiding the students, lest they take up any sources based on that. It is the teacher's duty to guide the students to go to particular websites or tutorials which give credible information. Otherwise, when it comes to children and we leave them alone, besides, during the COVID-19, there was a problem that they could not even cross-compare the content that is available online with the books in the library. So that was a big hassle. However, if the teacher guides them how to get to magazines or a library website, which can be done online and things like that, such issues can be dealt with. So reliability of sources is a concern for all. And it's a little bit of hard work for the teachers if the students can be guided. Otherwise, they are prone to using whatever is available.
Thank you, sister. I think that not only the teachers, but also the librarians have a role to play in that.
Yes,
in
very
helping
important.
students understand how to choose the reliable sources from YouTube. The next question is still for you, sister. What theory was used to frame your analysis about YouTube and class engagement?
Some of the theories that were used for the same was the blended learning theory, also uses and gratification theory, the social learning theory. These were a few of the theories, including cognitive theory of multimedia learning, which were applied for the research. But because of shortage of time, I couldn't present the same. I'm not able to hear you.
Thank you, sister. I think we only have 6 questions in the chat box. Any other questions from the audience or the participants? We can ask questions live. Our presenters are still here and we still have over 30 minutes left. Or maybe some other participants could still ask questions from the chat box. We are collecting them and answering.
I want to ask Ginny, could you give more examples of how, because I'm really interested about what we're talking about, especially the crossing of the finger and putting the pen. Do you have other techniques for us? Because this is something that, you know, we can apply when we teach also. So do you have other examples or do you have materials? Where can we learn more about this?
Yeah, so we have a couple of lesson plans on the Braintastic website, which have kind of ideas for how on activities you can do with students. We've got one for about the senses. I think it's got some illusions and something they can make their own illusion at home. And then I've got one for older students about learning and memory with some kind of memory games and activities to focus on how the brain learns. And that's another area that I really like doing shows and workshops on, because I always think when I was in school, teachers told me that I needed to start revising early and they told me that I shouldn't cram it all in at the last minute, but they never really told me why. So I just always feel the more we help young people understand why they've got to do these things, because it's how their brain works, the better. So yes, if you go to the Braintastic Science website, I can drop it in the chat in a moment. We've got a freebies page with a bunch of resources. We also do little Q&A videos on social media. So people send us questions and we answer them, any kind of questions about the brain. So I don't know how old your students are, if they might be interested in sending in any questions or that kind of thing. Yeah, there's lots of that kind of stuff on our social media and on our website. But actually, I might ask all of you a question, because partly because of the pandemic, I haven't been able to kind of get as involved in science communication in Singapore and the wider Southeast Asia area as I would have liked to. So a lot of what I do is still events back in the UK. So I'd love to know if there are any events that you guys know of or anywhere that you think would be interested in the kind of stuff that I do, either training of scientists or the stuff that I do for young people about the brain, or how I could sort of get the word out about what I do, if you have any ideas.
Thank you very much, Jeannie. Any other questions from our participants? You may ask.
In the Philippines, Miss Jean Smith, we have a radio program here in our radio station DZRH, which is a Radio Henyo. It talks more. It is targeted for the youth and for everyone who does not have any internet access or somewhere in the slums that they educate children using radio drama, which I surprisingly I listening to one of their episodes, I was fascinated how easy it was to understand. One of the episodes there was they talked about how soap works due to hydrophilic and hydrophobic uh, elements and particles that they have. I was fascinated how easy it was. The way I learned it back in high school was pretty hard, but listening to that radio program, radio drama rather, teaching students how science works, how everyday object in our lives that is related to science works is pretty amazing for me. So that is one programs that I can share to you.
Thank you, John Kenneth. Do we have other questions from the audience, from the participants?
Family members come to the center. That's why they have a lot of time to question.
You may raise your hand if you want to speak. Okay, I think we are done with our session. We only have 7 presenters instead of 8. Thank you very much. It was been a wonderful learning experience for everyone. But before we leave this session, we'd like to invite you to please join plenary session 6 coming up. And also we will have our group photo together. So may we request everyone to please turn on your videos. Okay.
Hi everyone, I'll be taking the photo for today. Please turn on your cameras and show those wonderful faces. Come on. We all agree that we need the personal interaction, and this is the best that we have today. So let's make the best use of this. Okay. I will count to 3 and please hold your smile for 5 seconds because I have 3 pages to take. And remember to look at the camera, not the screen. Alright? So please hold your smile for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, go. Alright, another one just to be sure. 1, 2, 3, smile. Alright, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone. It has been a wonderful learning experience with all of you. Take care. Please join the next plenary session. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
And